Okay, I'll call this public hearing to order for consideration of transmittal for a comprehensive plan amendment. I believe this is a public hearing. I believe Ms. Lundgren will have a statement about the fact that we have 5 members present. I will say, though, for the record, that we're expecting a 6-member any moment now. But go ahead, Ms. Lundgren.
Yes, the board's policy does provide that if there are 5 or fewer members present, the applicant has the right to request a continuance to a future meeting or a future time when there are 6 or more members present. At the beginning of the applicant's presentation on the amendment, I'd request, if there's only 5 members still, that the applicant decide whether they would like to request that continuance. And we are hearing tonight the comprehensive plan amendment number 1818 for consideration of transmittal to the State Land Planning Agency and other agencies for review. And this is the first of 2 public hearings required for adoption of the amendment. So at this point, we can turn the meeting over to the Planning Commission staff for introduction of the amendment.
I think we need to hear from the applicant as to where they, how they want to proceed.
We actually would prefer to proceed with 6 members, so if Commissioner Kemp is going to be here momentarily, can be for the record, by the way.
I just heard a door open. I
right.
think she may be here
Here she is.
as we speak.
All right.
Okay, fantastic. We're going to be handing the gavel over to our vice chair, Commissioner Kemp, but we'll ask the Planning Commission staff to proceed with their presentation.
Thank you, Commissioner White. Tony Garcia, Planning Commission staff. We have one item before you, as Ms. Lundgren has already stated to you, for transmittal for state and regional review. Ms. Krista Kelly will make the presentation to give you an update. This has been presented to you. Of course, it's been a while, so we'll give you a refresher as to the particulars of this particular case, and then we'll move forward with public comment and presentation by the applicant after that. Thank you.
Thank you, Krista Kelly, Planning Commission staff. I'm presenting Future Land Use Map Amendment 1818. This property is located in the urban service area within the Brandon Community Plan boundary. It's also in the Brandon Community Plan Urban General District. The site is located on the north side of Bloomingdale Avenue, just east of Lake Gronto Road. This area shows the site outlined in pink. As you can see, it's multiple properties developed with, they're rural home sites, actually. You can see the surrounding area, particularly to the west. This is a Target, a big box apartments, a suburban scale subdivision to the north. To the south, a more dense apartments. To the northwest, this is another big box Home Depot. This is another view, aerial view to show a bigger area. This is the amendment site here. To the east, leading up to Providence Road, there's a self-storage that's at a much more completed state at this point. The aerial's a little bit dated. This is another business. It's an upholstery shop with outdoor storage, and then here's a strip mall, just to give you a feel of the transitioning nature of this area. This is a privately initiated plan amendment. It's approximately 21.3 acres in size. The applicant's requesting a change from suburban mixed use 6 to residential 16. Here's some photos of the site north of Bloomingdale and on the north end of Simpson Road, which bounds the subject area. It gives you a feel for the rural home sites. From Simpson Road looking south towards Bloomingdale, again, you can see the rural character of the area. This is the adopted future land use map. Currently, it shows the site designated in pink, suburban mixed use 6, as is the surrounding area. To the west, again, where the more density, the apartments and the big box developments, the areas are designated community mixed use 12 and urban mixed use 20. And then on the south side of Bloomingdale from the site, there's apartments or designated residential 16. This is a map of the proposed land use change showing the site designated residential 16. The impact of this change, currently the site would allow approximately 115 dwelling units. 10% of the development would be required to be non-residential for properties 20 acres or greater, which this site is. It would allow for suburban scale, commercial non-residential uses, approximately 175,000 square feet would be the maximum square footage. It would allow light industrial at an FAR of 0.50. The proposed change to residential 16 would allow approximately 340 dwelling units, urban scale neighborhood commercial non-residential uses at a FAR of 0.50 or 175,000 square feet, which at this point would be capped at 175,000 square feet. It would also allow office, research, corporate park, mixed use, and multi-purposes projects at a FAR of 0.50. The proposed amendment would allow for additional residential units, as you saw from the table, and it would eliminate the ability to develop industrial uses on site. The change would essentially de-intensify the allowable non-residential uses. Staff reviewed it for consistency with the comprehensive plan. These found that the proposal was consistent with a number of the policies, and they are in your packet. It is consistent with policies that promote higher density in appropriate areas within the urban service area. It promotes infill and development in the appropriate areas, and it allows for a compatible and comparable scale development. In the transportation element, there are a number of policies that speak to encouraging increased ridership of transit systems, which this proposal would allow, and to implement measures to increase the overall ridership of transit systems, again, introducing higher density residential, utilizing transit, potentially. We distributed this amendment for agency review. We received a number of comments. One comment from the school district was that Spoto High School does not have the adequate capacity for the proposed development, and the attendance boundary change may have to be conducted in order to accommodate the additional growth. In conclusion, the Planning Commission considered this amendment and recommends that the proposed map amendment be found consistent with the comprehensive plan and forwards that recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Are there any questions? Seeing none. Well, this is a public hearing. We have 3 minutes per speaker. I'm sorry. We have 3 minutes per speaker. If you'd like to line up and come forward, I don't know who is intending to speak.
Good evening, Madam Chairwoman. I would like to ask the Chairwoman if our speakers on the project team may aggregate our time. There are 7 members that are present, 4 of whom will be waiving time to the 3 other members of the project team who will be speaking. And if at this time you'd like them to stand up and identify themselves as being present and waiving their time.
That's generally what we allow to be done.
Hello, good evening. Tony Tanaka.
Do you have 5 people present?
We have 7.
Well, I see
We have 4 people that are going to waive their time completely, and then there's 3 people that are part of the project team that will share that time. And we're going to identify first the people that are going to waive their time.
Okay, so the first one will be 12 minutes with 4 people. Is that what you're saying?
No, we have a
I'm
total.
sorry.
That's okay. We have a total of 7 people for
Right.
a total of 21 minutes.
Right.
And usually what we do is we have those individuals who are waiving their time come up to the podium, identify themselves, say they're present, and say that they're waiving their time. So I was going
Right.
to let them do that. So
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
Hi, Tony Tanico, and I'm waiving my time.
Robert McDaniel to waive my time.
Roy Major, I'd like to waive my time.
Hello, my name's Clint Cuffle, WRA, and I'll waive my time.
You could give us just one moment to get our PowerPoint up. Okay. Good evening, Cami Corbett. For the record, I do represent the applicant, East Meridian Property Group, and Krista did a good job of reorienting you to the request. We are requesting to change from SMU 6 to residential 16 to facilitate an infill 337 multifamily project with 2,000 square feet of commercial that would be vertically integrated within the project. It's a land assemblage with 4 separate property owners representing 6 separate parcels. And this is something that we followed for quite some time. 2 years we followed the Brandon Mixed-Use Corridor Study, which was a joint MPO and Planning Commission study, and that's why how we identified the site and proposed to move forward. As you heard, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend consistency of this plan amendment. Also, when we came here back in January before you, several of you expressed supports of certain components of the development. It is infill development. It is on an existing transit corridor where there's existing bus service. There were some concerns raised about school concurrency and transportation, and that's some of what we're going to talk to you about this evening. First, with respect to school concurrency, since the time that the school board submitted their comments into the record, they have adopted their tentative 5-year work plan, and that does include a 500 student addition to Spoto High School. So that's the high school that is zoned for this property. In addition, they confirmed in an email, which we're going to be submitting in the record, that when new high school TTT opens up, that will open up the potential for an additional 219 seats in East Bay. So we believe strongly that at the time of development, we're going to satisfy school concurrency. And I think that even if we don't, there are adequate protections in your land development code already that say that if we don't, we can't proceed. And we think that is, so that we don't think that would be a reason to deny the plan amendment because you already have that protection in your code. And so at this time, I'd like to ask Steve Henry to come up and address the transportation issues.
Which one do I hit? Cam. What do I hit?
Good evening. Steve Henry, Livingston Associates, 5023 West Laurel, Tampa 33607. I want to talk to you about the traffic for the project. This first graphic illustrates the counts. We actually went out on Bloomingdale Avenue and did 3-day counts along Bloomingdale Avenue just to the east of Gornto Lake. And this graphic represents the hourly volumes that we conducted for those counts. And the top line represents the capacity, level of service D capacity for Bloomingdale Avenue. And as you can see, in every hour, the volume is less than the capacity of Bloomingdale Avenue. Therefore, it operates at an acceptable level of service. This next graphic illustrates the level of service of the surrounding roadways. This is based on your current Hillsborough County level of service manual that shows that the roadways in the vicinity of the area operate at an acceptable level of service. This includes I-75, 301, Bloomingdale, and Gornto Lake. What we also did is we worked with the Planning Commission to determine the development scenarios that could be built on the project, on the property based on the existing SMU 6 land use category. In addition, as indicated, we've already submitted a PD plan for 337 multifamily units and 2,000 square feet of retail. So what this illustrates is the trip generation comparison of what could be built under the SMU 6 versus the PD plan that we have submitted. The light color is the SMU 6, The dark is the PD plan. And as you can see, other than one scenario, each one of them generates significantly less traffic in both the AM and the PM peak hours. Then we want to talk about some of the planned improvements that are budgeted for construction in the area. The first is Progress Boulevard, which will be 4-laned over I-75. And then the second one is adding an additional lane on the on-ramp from 301 to I-75. That is currently budgeted for construction. And then the third one is the intersection improvement at Bloomingdale and 301. DOT is actually adding an additional westbound left turn lane at the intersection, and then also converting the northbound right turn lane into a through and right turn lane. So adding additional capacity to the system. In addition to those improvements that are budgeted, there's also about $240 million in regional improvements in the LRTP and CIP that will also add capacity to the system. In addition, there is transit service along Bloomingdale Avenue. There is currently Route 8 and Route 13. In addition, there are planned improvements, including weekend service and also adding more frequency to routes 8 and 31, and then also adding some local bus service. In addition, the developer is proposing to add a bus shelter at the site and also obviously sidewalk connection to connect the development to the bus shelter. Yep. There it goes. Okay. You may also hear tonight about accidents along Bloomingdale Avenue. Your MPO has developed what's called the Vision Zero, and as a part of that, they looked at every road in Hillsborough County, and they categorized them by the most severe accident roadways in Hillsborough County, and these are the top 20 roadway segments that were in the Vision Zero. Bloomingdale Avenue is not in that list. Then also, Vision Zero has a number of tools that they use to help reduce the accidents. One of them is lighting. Whenever we put a signal in at an intersection, one of the things we have to do now, it's DOT criteria, Vision Zero, is that we add lighting to that intersection. We actually add it to 3-foot candles. What the developer is willing to do here, if you look at the intersection of Bloomingdale and Gornto Lake, today there are no lights. There's a traffic signal, but no lights. Developer is willing to work with the county to provide lights for the intersection at the 3.0, which helps from an accident standpoint, significantly improves accidents at intersections when you add the lighting. In addition to that, another tool in the Vision Zero is access to bus stop. And as we indicated, the developer is going to build a bus shelter and build access to that bus shelter. That concludes my presentation, unless you've got any questions. Yes?
Did you have a question? You're recognized.
Thank you. You had made mention lighting at Gornto Lake.
Yes.
In lieu of having a signaling in the bus shelter closer to Simpson Road?
No, I'm sorry, say that again now?
So the edge of the property is it's Simpson, right?
Correct, and there's actually a graphic missing out of it. And I'll somehow, well.
You're almost there.
Yeah, it's somehow we lost a graphic.
Okay. Well.
Oh, here. Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. So the yellow line represents, I believe, Simpson Road. I
Correct.
think is
Yes.
what it is.
Right.
Okay. And then there is actually another right-of-way, Carroll something Road.
Cummings Road. Yes.
Pardon me.
Cummings Road.
Cummings Road.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
At Simpson, if you're going to put a bus stop in front of that building, commercial building, I'm not sure that lighting at Gornto is going to accomplish what's necessary to keep people safe as they come and go inside of a one-way in, one-way out intersection.
Well, what we're trying to do is that part of it's the overall plan. Ultimately, the Vision Zero may light all of Bloomingdale, but what we're trying to do is what we do when we do intersections is looking at lighting at just to help from an accident standpoint. Certainly, what the road does for Simpson is provide conductivity because it is along our western boundary. So the right-of-way is adjacent to the other properties, so you're able to have that conductivity to them. We would have, a direct connection to the bus shelter, and so by providing that, you are providing a safe way for people to walk within the development to that bus shelter and to be able to use the transit facility.
Okay, I'm just still trying to understand the whole concept of putting lighting all the way down on Gornto.
It really is more just of a more of a regional or area-wide improvement, not necessarily attributed just to this development, but more trying to help the area.
Okay.
Just like the intersection improvements at Bloomingdale and 301, what we're just trying to do is help the overall area.
Is there any recommended signaling at Simpson Road?
No, it would not meet signal warrants.
And is there a bus stop and a daycare across the street?
I believe, I don't know for sure. I know there's a daycare. I don't know if there's a bus stop, but.
Okay. Because people that typically live in apartments typically have children, and so you want to have some safe ways to get across the way other than walking all the way down to Gornto, which would be better if it has lighting, but and then turn around and come back. So I was just curious at what safety mechanisms, given Vision Zero necessity of 300 plus units that are coming out of this particular facility.
Well, and there may be, as the Vision Zero looks, because as they go along, they're looking at different roadways. They may come up with a plan, or there may be a plan to do mid-block crossings for pedestrians. When they look at, where the demand is for pedestrians and where they might cross, just like you've got up on Fletcher, where they may do those mid-block crossings. And that would be a study that could be done as a part of that, and would be done as a part of the Vision Zero, looking at the roadway.
Right, because it does look like, and I don't know whether it's a public road or a private road, but the other road, like whatever, Cummings, having the ability to exit the overall project. We had previously suggested, finding a way to get to Gornto. I'm assuming that's become more difficult than not. But finding a way to do that, if you could get Simpson to calm down and have another way to get out of the complex other than get like Carolyn so that you could use Simpson and Cummings to be able to help the individuals come off the property, that would be helpful. Because it does appear as though the commercial sitting right on the corner of Simpson,
Sure.
along with a bus stop, is an awful lot of congestion right there at that without a light. So I recognize I know this is a transmittal, but I'm just trying to make sure you understand when it comes back, if it should come back, those are going to be issues that have to be, I think, addressed.
No, we understand, and we will definitely look at those. And again, as far as the conductivity, that's one of the reasons why we put the right-of-way for Simpson up against that western boundary, so that we have the opportunity, whether if it's us or as that property develops, to connect to Simpson and then continue that connection and conductivity all the way over to Gornto Lake.
Excellent.
So that we're given that opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to quickly clarify, the lighting he's talking about is not to the exclusion of on-site lighting or bus stop lighting. It's in addition to.
Good evening. For the record, Alexis Crespo with Waldrop Engineering, 9432 Camden Field Parkway. I'm just going to go back in the slides briefly, and my role tonight is to discuss the proposed amendments' consistency with your comprehensive plan, including the broad overarching goals, objectives, and policies related to directing new infill development within your urban service area where you're well served by existing infrastructure and services, but also touching on what Ms. Kelly spoke of, which is this project's consistency with what the vision is for the Brandon community, dating back to the 2010 plan when this property was designated urban general, as you can see on this slide. Dating back to the early days of the planning process here, this was intended for multifamily uses up to 5 stories in height. We have limited that height, as I'll get into, but clearly due to the roadway network and infrastructure, this area was always intended to one day achieve higher densities and intensities. Looking forward, the county is invested continually in the Brandon corridors and mixed-use activity center study. They're on phase 2 now, I believe, and they're really looking at areas within the Brandon community where new development, infill development can be diversified in terms of land use. Densities and intensities can be increased, so you can ultimately get that multimodal transportation pattern in this area as it is transitioning from suburban to more urban land uses. You're all familiar with where the property is located along Bloomingdale, and this exhibit just shows the nature and extent of development along the roadway, the services, employment opportunities for future residents to enjoy within the subject property. And it's really an anomaly to have such an underutilized site along an arterial roadway. This is surrounded by not only residential uses to the north, but commercial, light industrial, and several multifamily projects. So the fact that a property owner has been able to assemble lands in order to create a master planned and well thought out infill project is a unique opportunity in this area. Typically, we don't get into site plan level of details at the comprehensive plan amendment stage, but based on discussion back in January, we understand that the neighbors want to understand what's happening in their community and are engaged in this process. We wanted to bring those details to you tonight. So what you saw and what Mr. Henry also presented is an illustrative version of the PD Master Concept Plan, and we've worked diligently to redesign this so that we can be compatible with our neighbors to the north. We know we've got an arterial roadway to the south, light industrial commercial uses surrounding us, but to our north we do have single-family detached residential. Again, we've worked to address their needs. And what are the items we heard from the Mariposa community to the north? Building height. They have 1- and 2-story single-family detached, so they were concerned about 4-story buildings. Through the companion PD that is going to the zoning hearing master on Monday night, we have reduced the building height from 4 stories down to 2 stories for those units closest to Mariposa. We've also done a further step down in transition and located the 1-story garage structures along that northern property line. So you step down from 4 stories closest to Bloomingdale down to 2 along the northern boundary, and then down to a single story along that closest boundary line. We've also looked at the buffers, doubled the required buffer width, and incorporated some decorative fencing in order to ensure an attractive transition to the community. This slide helps depict that in a little bit closer detail. So you can see the yellow is the single-family homes in Mariposa. The green, the darker green, is the existing wetlands on their property that will certainly remain in perpetuity, provide for great screening and visual screening of the property. You can see the photos along the bottom of the slide depict that existing vegetation, not only from ground level, but also if you're in an upper story of one of these units, what you can expect to see looking into Mariposa, and then vice versa. And you can see that the vegetation is thick and does provide excellent screening. In addition to that, we're proposing the 40-foot wide buffer with enhanced plantings as well as the fencing, and then a step down to the single-story garage structures so that they're seeing not even a roof line from internal to their project. And here are just some additional photos depicting that existing vegetation from, again, a view of about 45 feet from inside the property. The Type B buffer is illustrated here and gives a better depiction of the mid and canopy trees, as well as that decorative fencing in the hedgerows to, again, further screen the community. And this touches on directly policy 1.4 of your comprehensive plan that says different land uses, multifamily and single family, can coexist. They can work together as long as you have performance standards in place, such as building height conditions, massing conditions, which we've done through the garages, landscaping, standards to keep the lighting setback, et cetera. So all this is done to demonstrate how this project will be compatible with the neighborhood in accordance with your comprehensive plan. We know there are some folks here tonight. We hope that some of this information that we've shared and will continue to share at the zoning hearing master has helped alleviate some concerns. I do have letters of support that I'll enter into the record, as many of the property owners shown checked in green are supportive of the project. See, this is a great opportunity to, again, redevelop an underutilized property along a key corridor in the area. I'm also going to be submitting other items into the record, including the 5-year work plan for the schools that Kami has touched upon, and also additional correspondence from the school board based upon the capacity information she provided. With that, I'm happy to answer questions or turn it over to Kami to close us out.
Are there any questions? I don't see any, seeing none.
It appears that many of the people in the opposition also have a PowerPoint. We're not privy to that information, so I would like to reserve the balance of our time to be able to come back up and respond to any new information that's presented.
Any objections? We are having a public hearing. If you care, you each have 3 minutes to, if you'd like to line up over here. Please state your name when you, at the beginning.
So yeah, just start clicking through the tabs and get everything through. Hi, my name is Eric Jablon, and I'm the president of the Mariposa Homeowners Association. We are a community of 189 homes which directly borders this proposed project. We sent a survey out to
Can you hold on 1 second?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that clock. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. You want me to redo, start over, or just? Yeah.
You can just go on.
Yeah. We sent out a survey to the entire community, and only one homeowner selected the support options. Reasons to not support this project varied, but the number one reason is because of the negative impacts to Bloomingdale Avenue. We do appreciate the concessions the builder has proposed, such as reduced building height, large buffer, and strategic placements of garages. However, this does not resolve the major traffic issues we have with the proposed increase in density that will directly impact Bloomingdale Avenue. As you all know, Bloomingdale Avenue is a failing road, and there are no proposed plans within the county's 2045 roadmap to fully resolve it. The Brandon Corridor studies, which this project is in line with, fails to address the biggest issue, transit. There are a few small projects planned, but none that will truly resolve the safety issues of this road. Months after month, Bloomingdale Avenue is always at the top list of traffic accidents locations, according to the Hillsborough County Sheriff Office as shown. This project would also push the proposed zone schools over capacity. As county leaders, we are counting on you to help our community and fix these major road and safety issues. We voted on the increased sales tax to help resolve these issues, and now we want to see progress in getting these issues resolved. Until we start seeing process, I do not believe an increased density in this area is the correct solution. And the slides that are shown are just direct top-rated accidents from the Hillsborough County, just showing the amount of accidents and where it ranks compared to other areas in Hillsborough County. And as you can see, month after month, always it's significantly high. I had a PowerPoint presentation, but it didn't end up working for some reason.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name's Jared Robinson. I don't have a PowerPoint or anything fancy, but so they were talking about how it has level service of D and it's passing, but adding traffic's not going to help that. And I don't know what traffic study they might have done, but I'm hoping that they added the traffic to that, and hopefully it's not F. But like they were saying, you know, the accidents there are really bad, and the only thing they brought up was severe, which just because it's not a debilitating or like a death with accidents doesn't mean that it's not a problem with safety as it is. And like you're talking about, people are going to be trying to cross back and forth. The bus stop's on the other side, so all those people are going to have to go on that side. Anyways, I'll drop that there. There's most likely not going to be a light at that point because you have all these offset roads with the daycare at Bloomingdale Hills. I mean, I don't know how you're going to have a signal. You'd have to do some kind of two-phase weird signal that's going to just completely wreck that level of service D that they're talking about. And the little wetlands that they are keeping to the north for Mariposa. I don't live over there, but I don't know if they talked about secondary impacts, but if you impact wetlands, there's a 50-foot offset, secondary impacts that affect those wetlands. They can't grow the same way that they were in the past. You've developed it, so all the sunlight, there are plants that weren't getting sunlight don't grow the same, and has impacts that way too. So, yeah, so all the improvements that they listed don't include Bloomingdale. It was all Providence to the west and 301 and I-75, which is great. You know, that stuff needs to be improved. But this is all, it's 4 lanes, 2-way, you know, with a 2-way left turn lane. I mean, you have tons of people getting stuck in that 2-way left turn lane, and it just backs up. And now you have people on the other side that are offset that have to turn left to go to Publix and all that stuff. You're going to have people getting stuck in that middle lane, not knowing what to do, and it's going to be a disaster. So I don't know if that was 3 minutes, but it's about all I have. So.
You have another minute if you want to talk,
Oh,
but if
damn.
you're finished, we
Need
can
to slow
take the
down
next
a little
speaker.
I think I'm about, let me just read through this one. I think that's about it. So, I mean, I like that they, you know, talked with Mariposa, but they didn't really talk with anybody to the south. So that'd be good too, maybe in the future.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Good evening, Commissioners. Nick Hansen. I'm a resident of Mariposa. Would like to take the time today really just to talk about the safety aspect. I'm a father of 5 kids. My kids go to Winthrop, which is right on Providence, right off of Bloomingdale and Providence. And I really do appreciate the developers taking the time to meet with Mariposa and to sort of address some of the concerns. Our concerns are not the aesthetics of the development. Our concerns are the safety of Bloomingdale and also the arteries that feed into Bloomingdale. So we sort of look at this project as within the confines of Gornto and Providence and Bloomingdale, but those 300 cars don't disappear when they cross Gornto. They feed into 301. They go up Providence, they go up Gornto Lakes. All of these places are parking lots. They go down to single lanes. It's dangerous. It's dangerous now to just drive my children to school. It's dangerous now. There is no walkable paths on Bloomingdale Avenue. That's a farce. And I think that we have right now large-scale multifamily developments that just were completed on 301 in Bloomingdale that have not even been absorbed. These are 15 buildings that are 4 and 5 stories high. And so what happens when that absorption of that inventory happens? You know, how many more people on that road? They don't disappear. They go into all of the other places that we live, work, and take our kids to school. And so while I think extraordinary measures have been taken to work with us and on the aesthetics part of this, we still have not solved the underlying problem, which is the traffic and safety of Bloomingdale. The comment was made, and I think astutely, we have 6 pounds of potatoes in a 5-pound sack. That hasn't changed. The sack has not gotten bigger, and we're now about to add a couple more potatoes. And we have to really look at this in a global perspective and say, when you look at the feeding arteries into Bloomingdale, these people are not going away. So I applaud the traffic study, but let's broaden that out. Let's look at where the actual infrastructure improvements are happening and when they're happening. So great, we complete the development. We add 300 more cars, potentially 600 to 700 more people. There's not one person living in these places. It's just simply the capacity is not there. I say this as somebody who does residential development, does commercial development, and is typically on the side over here. I understand it. I think those concessions were made because we all understand this is not a project that fits neatly into this area. It may have been contemplated that 9 or 10 years ago when we made these plans. It's certainly not the reality today. I would welcome anyone to come out there, stand on the street corner, peak time, not peak time, Saturday or Sunday, anytime you want. It is bumper car, roller derby every day. And I say this to the commission. What is it worth? What life is it worth to push this forward? 1, 2, maiming somebody? It's not safe now. It's not going to get more safe with this without significant improvements to the infrastructure. So I ask you respectfully to reject this amendment and to work on the infrastructure needs of this area. Thank you.
Next speaker.
Hi. Floyd Williams, thank you so much for allowing us to speak towards this. I'm one of those residents that's a single-family detached, sitting right north of the property. And I can say that some of my neighbors bring up a point that has been an issue for many years. I recently was across the street in the development on Bloomingdale, living in those apartment complexes. And the reason why the severity index is so small on Bloomingdale in relationship to their accidents is because everyone that drives on there is afraid of it. And that reduces the speed, that increases our awareness, and we also respect the other drivers because we all have to go on that road and we understand how dangerous it is. So using the severity as a means of discussing the volume accidents is not the same apples to oranges. In the end, the volume is causing the incidents. The severity index doesn't really matter. I'm a safety professional by trade, and when I look at the way we're considering risk, what our allowable risk would be for that street, it reminds me of what I do for a living, and it really does not fit the model that we use as safety professionals. The severity is a very, very important piece of determining whether or not someone can be put in harm's way. You understand that? But when you're dealing with a 2,000-pound piece of equipment that has the ability to fly completely over a human being at 5 miles an hour, it really doesn't matter. All right. There are some really great things that I think the developers has done, and they're trying to abate the other side, the mitigation side of this, by adding more lighting, which is a great idea. I mean, that is a strong mitigating force to say that I'm going to not have an accident. Unfortunately, for that area, I'm not sure that additional lighting would matter. We'll just see each other sooner before we hit each other. Now, one last thing. I mean, the maximum capacity of Bloomingdale has not been reached. We understand that. And he's demonstrated some clear data to say that that's possible to get there. It's not been reached. The issue is that the maximum capacity decided and put in place for that particular piece of road is insufficient. It was bad math, it was phony math, not considering the fact that human beings drive vehicles erratically. And from someone from the Midwest, yeah, erratically, even more in Florida. So I think my time is up.
Your time is up.
Hi, my name is Chad Holt, and I'm a homeowner in Mariposa. I, along with many other neighbors in the community, am against construction of high-density living areas along Bloomingdale. Traffic has been an issue for many years and has increasingly gotten worse over time. It has been growing more difficult to make it to and from school and work each day. For example, turning east on Bloomingdale from Gornto Lake Road from the hours of 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. can take up to 10 minutes due to traffic being backed up. It could take up to 4 traffic light signals to get through them. During the hours of 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. with 3 turn lanes on Bloomingdale to turn onto 301 causes backups all the way to Gornto Lake Road. In the evening, traffic is backed up from Gornto Lake all the way to 301. There's 3 lanes that back up going to 301. These are just a few examples of the traffic problems that occur 30% of the day to account for morning, noon, and evening. Safety is a major concern. To reference the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office traffic accident website, Bloomingdale is always ranked in the top 10 for each month for traffic accidents. I was going to go over each one, but I think we've established that Bloomingdale is always in the top 10 for accidents, not critical accidents. Traffic and safety concerns are continuing to grow. The opposition argues that Bloomingdale is only a D-ranked road and not an F. Well, I'm sorry, but when I was in school, D was never okay. I mean, what point do we stop? At Providence and Bloomingdale, a 70-home community is being constructed. Since they could only turn right onto Providence, this will increase capacity of traffic to Bloomingdale. A new daycare center is on the books to be constructed on Gornto Lake. Morning and afternoon traffic is going to cause turning traffic to increase from Bloomingdale. Schools in the area are already at capacity. Spoto High School was quoted in a recent article stating they cannot accommodate additional growth. We've already established that. I am urging this council to please put a halt to additional growth until we could improve the system. Let's be proactive instead of reactive. It is better to fix the problem now than to fix it with even more cars on the road. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
How you doing? Eric Roth. I too am a resident at Mariposa, and I do appreciate what they have proposed in lowering the heights of the buildings and whatnot, but it still comes back to the safety of the area and the traffic. I mean, we just can't handle it. I use that road every day. I take my kids to daycare and school on that road. There's no way that we can add all that extra housing there. There's just no way. And be safe. And adding lighting and all that, I'm not quite sure. Was it a light they're going to add or lighting? I wasn't quite sure, but either way, I don't see how that's going to help either. So I just want to, ask you guys to oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers?
Good evening, Commissioners. David Singer, with the Shoemaker Law Firm, 101 East Kennedy. I'm in the unusual position. Usually I'm here on behalf of the developer. Tonight I'm here on behalf of several homeowners who have followed the progress of this comprehensive plan amendment, have attended meetings, have met with the developer, who are actually within the boundaries of this comprehensive plan amendment proposal, and they are supportive. They ask that you support this amendment, transmit it tonight, give your approval, and I'm going to give you 3 reasons that they would like communicated. First of all, compatibility. As planning staff has shown this evening and throughout this process, this is simply not a rural neighborhood anymore. It used to be, and it's just not. This is an infill site, and an infill site, the policy of this board has and should continue to be to promote density. Second, frustration about traffic on Bloomingdale Avenue is not the same as frustration about traffic that this project might generate. Those are 2 different things. Yes, Bloomingdale is a tough road. And is it a D, is it an F? We could debate that. But the truth is, adding 300 homes here versus adding 127 that are already entitled and light industrial that's already entitled, the traffic is not going to increase. So I would encourage you to not equate frustration with traffic on Bloomingdale currently with frustration that this particular plan amendment might generate. Third point is, these homeowners ask that you treat them the same way that you've treated other applicants in the past. The folks that are here speaking in opposition, their land used to be rural land, and now it's dense land for homes, for multifamily. Don't punish these folks who are looking to sell their land now because it's not the place that they used to live simply because they're last in time. That's not fair. That's not right. Just because they're looking to make a change now when other folks have made a same change before that this board, not this particular group, but this board has approved, does not mean that they should be denied. So we ask that you support this, and there are homeowners out there who are in favor of this and understand the character of this neighborhood is changing and that the comprehensive plan has to change with it. That's what we do as a community. Thank you very much.
Do we have any other speakers?
My name is Elaine Bryant, and I have lived on Bloomingdale Avenue since 1946. I have seen a lot of changes, some for the good, some for the bad. It's not the traffic on Bloomingdale that's the problem. It's the people talking on their phones. I am the owner of a single-family home on a 2.32-acre property located at 5922 Simpson Road in Riverview, Florida. My late husband, William Bryant, and I have been citizens of Riverview since 1949. During this time, I have seen Riverview go through many good changes and progress, most recently the area on Bloomingdale Avenue around my property. However, the increase in commercial activity in the surrounding area makes the property undesirable for continual use as a single-family home. Most recently, the property directly to the east of mine, located at 10670 Bloomingdale Avenue, was rezoned and developed as a large extra space storage facility. I, along with my sister-in-law, Kathy Wiggins, have been trying to sell our home and land as a single parcel since 2007, but have not been able to do so because the zoning board for the property is still agriculture. Although there has been many developer investors' interest, but no one has been willing to take the risk of the rezoning the property. Our properties used to be about beautiful wetlands and pastures to the north, but to our disappointment, that vacant land was sold, cleared, leveled, developed in a subdivision directly behind our properties. However, we were encouraged by the fact that the development of that property might increase the possibility that someone else might be willing to rezone our property. We would finally be able to sell out our land. Ironically, it is not those residents in that subdivision who are opposing the rezoning of my property. I am respectfully asking the commission to review and approve the rezoning of my property to make it compatible with the country's future growth plan along Bloomingdale Avenue and consider the continued hardship it would cause if this was denied. As a tax-paying member of this community for over 70 years, I would ask that you treat my family and I fairly in this matter, so I may live out my golden years respectfully and in good comfort. And it's not the road that's the problem. It's the people talking on their phone, and they're talking on that phone and not watching the light.
Thank you. Next speaker, do we have?
My name is Paul Savage. My address is 12632 South US Highway 41, Gibsonton. I moved into Brandon area in the late 50s. There was one traffic light at Parsons. Then we got another one at Kings. It was a 2-lane road. I've been a real estate broker for 50 years. I know this piece of property very well. Pete back there is another real estate broker. We refused to sign several contracts for the mere fact that we had already talked to staff and to several people at the county, and they told us about what they wanted to get something done there. And I think Tony has met with staff, did everything that he could possibly do. And the piece of property that I own there is a little over 10 acres, and I have cows on it. John Ernst owned the 80 acres that these people have houses on that he had cows on, and we used to sell and trade cows together. Now we've got a bad situation in the last few months. The sheriff's department has finding people landing on our property, putting up tents, and these are the people that are causing a lot of the crime and problems, and I had to give the sheriff's department carte blanche to go on the property. If anybody was there, remove them, take them off, or what have you. They're cutting my fences, they're letting my cows out, and this development would be a nice controlled with normal people there, not tent people. I've seen this county grow. The county has did a great job in managing the schools, the safetiness. I drive Bloomingdale a lot. Sometimes Bloomingdale, I can go to the light, no cars there. Other times, it's busy. But anywhere I go, I can go up 41, I can go up 301. It's all busy at peak times. The other good thing about this project is the close to 301 and I-75, a lot of people get on out of this project and go north or south on 75 or the Crosstown Expressway or I-4. And to say anything else, I could go on and on, but I don't think it'd do any good. I thank you for your time, and I hope you consider approving this project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any other speakers? Sir.
Hi, good evening. Josh Sackett, resident of the Brandon area for the last 25 years or so. My concern necessarily isn't for the volume of traffic on Bloomingdale. It's more for the safety and for the safety for all the potential future residents of this development. Just, you know, with 300 plus units along with the commercial plaza at the front, coming out of this development, it's going to be very, very challenging, especially making a left turn out of this development, given it's a 2-lane road with a turn lane in the center. I appreciate everything that the development group has done to kind of improve their initial offering. They've clearly spent more than 2 years on this project. They've got a lot invested. I'm not against development for this area. I know a lot's changed in Brandon and Bloomingdale and Riverview. I'm just for the right development. I don't think a multi-use, or not multi-use, I think you know, an apartment complex this size would change the area significantly. We currently have a corridor like that along 301 that's very, very close. I like the bus stop that's in front of it. I'd like to see another bus stop added across the street, because everyone that's riding a bus from this area will have to get off eventually. So it'd be nice there. The closest intersection that they'd be able to cross is more than a third of a mile away. I'm concerned with the safety of that. It's a busy street. Just trying to cross that would be very, very challenging. I really respect that they've been working with the Mariposa residents since the beginning. I'd love to see, probably the residents that are going to be the most affected are going to be those living across the street. I'd love to see an outreach program to them as well too. I'd also like to see, if possible, you know, Bloomingdale doesn't have a fix soon, but it starts when the planning commission's going through and rezoning this. I'd love to see an additional easement put in so that when we have the ability to go down the road to take it from the 2 lanes that it is now, that it would be just that easier, because we'd have a block of land reserved to extend it. So again, just in conclusion, I'm not against all development. I'm for the right development. I think they've done a lot of really good work here, but I think given their time and resources, there's still more work to be done. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? Any other speakers? I know that you reserved time for rebuttal, so.
Sorry. Just want to put this in context again in terms of what we're asking for today, which is a land use change. And this comparison of land uses is also in your staff report, and that is the comparison of land uses that Mr. Henry brought up. And just want to point out and remind everyone that the current land use, SMU 6, does allow for up to 324,739 square feet of mixed-use office, retail, and then also up to 463,914 square feet of industrial. And so we submitted this analysis, and Planning Commission staff and Development Services staff agreed with it, and we also submitted with it an actual trip comparison for the AM peak hour, the PM peak hour, and the daily trips. It's hard to say, hard to show this, but when you compare land use to land use, in every development scenario, the trips are actually reduced or are the same. We showed you in our presentation, we were honest with you and showed you the trip generation from our proposed project. We didn't want to mislead you, show you this, and then come back and have a different number shown to you. But we do want to point that out to you, that we are actually reducing the potential for trips on the roadway. And with that, I'd like to ask Steve Henry to come up and address you.
Again, Steve Henry. Just want to address a couple of things real quickly. One is, it talked about the level of service. Again, as we indicated from our analysis and from your staff level of service report, the roadways in the area do operate at an acceptable level of service. And then about the traffic impact of this project, as Ms. Corbett had indicated, and our analysis shows, what we're proposing is less traffic in virtually every scenario than what we're proposing. So, yeah, we could, with the SMU6, could generate more traffic than what we've got. And the second thing, or third thing, is really from a transit standpoint, is that if you keep building all the roads, transit's never going to work. At some point in time, you've got to allow the transit to work. And that's really, if we just keep widening roads and widening roads, transit's not going to work. And you've got to allow some pain to allow the transit system to actually work. So that concludes my presentation, unless you got any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to, again, just point out that we are asking for transmittal this evening. This is not the final decision. There is a companion rezoning. We have timed it up, so you will hear them at the same time, so we'll be able to consider all of the issues globally. I think from a planning perspective, this is infill development in the place where it's supposed to be. It's on an existing bus service. There's regular weekday bus service to downtown from this site. If you're going to support transit, we need to increase density along existing bus routes, and I think that it's really important to do that. I know it's a balance of different competing opinions and competing thoughts, but I do think that it's important that you move forward with this. This will allow you to guarantee that you will get the type of land use that the Planning Commission and the MPO feel is appropriate for this site. And with that, I would respectfully request your approval.
Thank you. I see we have several people in the queue here. Commissioner White, you're recognized.
Thank you. Well, I never come to these public hearings with my mind made up. That's the whole reason that we have a public hearing. And I'll tell you what cemented my position this evening is Ms. Bryan's testimony. Ordinarily, folks such as Ms. Bryan are on the opposite side of the issue. They're trying to protect a certain character around their family homestead or home site. But here is a case where things have clearly changed around her home site, and you know she's looking for the opportunity to have the ability to realize market value in her land based upon the surrounding conditions. I live out in the area. I do recognize the challenges with Bloomingdale Avenue, and we are working diligently towards solutions for Bloomingdale Avenue. I recently pitched an idea that turned out to not be so popular, but we've gone back to the drawing board, and certainly I think that we will find solutions there. I will remind everyone that I champion the concept of hearing rezonings and comp plan amendments side by side. If this is transmitted this evening, it will come back side by side with the rezoning. We will have the opportunity to address further some of the concerns that we're hearing about in detail at that time. Again, this is just a transmittal to the state so that they can see if any state interests are impacted. With all that being said, I'll move for transmittal.
We have a motion for transmittal and a second. Commissioner Overman, you're recognized.
Thank you. I just have a couple of questions from, actually, I'm not going to ask the applicant. I'll ask our staff because they probably have more experience with this kind of process in terms of timing. When a project is going through a plan amendment like this and then ultimately comes up with its design, and although they've done an admirable job in helping us understand what their vision looks like, what does that timeline kind of look like? I mean, I know it ranges depending on the complexity, but for an SMU to an R16, what is that usually as far as development to where they start breaking ground and putting houses or apartment complexes in place? Any idea, any range of ideas of how long that would take?
Commissioners, the zoning for this site has been filed. I believe that the applicant is intending to move, if the zoning is approved, quickly from zoning into development. That pace is governed by their schedule of when they would submit it, but I would say that my familiarity with the zoning leads me to believe that they're intending on developing this sooner than later if they get the zoning approved.
for someone who may or not understand what you just said, because I'm still trying to figure out what sooner than later oftentimes mean, because when I'm talking to FDOT, that means 5 years from now. When I'm talking with other entities, that might be 6 months from now. So could you give me just, like, are we talking about a year, 6 months to break ground, to start building?
Yeah, to start building. I would only be speculating of what their schedule
Understood.
is to come into the process.
Best case scenario, what is possible? You think?
You're talking about a county review time for a project such as this. Year is certainly feasible to break ground if the project is diligently pursued.
Okay, and that helps me, because what I'm looking at is the project list of transportation projects that we have in not only our TIP, our LRTP, as well as under what we have sort of budgeted for in the event that the surtax survives its circumstances, that, you know, monies might be available to implement Vision Zero and improve the conditions on Bloomingdale. Because obviously that's what's necessary on Bloomingdale. We're going to have to apply some better road safety mechanisms to allow that road to operate in such a way to handle any load, much less the relatively small amount of load that would be allowed for, in comparison, which I didn't anticipate, for this R16 versus the possible of SMU 6, because that would be more industrial and more commercial, and actually, according to our calculations or the calculations of transportation, would actually be a greater amount of traffic than it would be if it were residential. Is that reading, am I reading that right?
Yes, and we agree with those calculations, that those development scenarios that were included in the analysis are realistic development scenarios, and we agree with the trip generation of the before and after that's in the analysis that would result in reductions, I think, in all but one scenario.
Yeah, which isn't intuitively the way it should work, but I understand how that works. And when I look at the schedule for the projects on improvements in any of those areas, they are scheduled and were scheduled and should be scheduled for 2019, 20, and 21. So it does appear, from what I can see in the schedule of transportation improvements in that area, they are scheduled to occur over the next year to 2 years, maybe 3. Which might improve if we can move forward on some of our transportation initiatives, including surtax dollars that we could possibly use for road improvements that are in the surtax language, and what we've been talking about in the way of implementation on the priorities. I think we could actually see that they might coincide. So I'm willing to support transmittal at this point.
Commissioner Smith, you're recognized.
Thank you. I agree that this is where we want to do infill. This is a good location for increasing density for all the reasons that we often talk about that. My only concern is the safety. I have researched the same traffic accident reports that the young gentleman was showing up here. And so I have a few questions about that. Although the applicant is saying that Bloomingdale is not in the top 20 of Vision Zero, I mean, when I looked back at the last 7 months, the first 7 months of this year, there are several intersections on Bloomingdale that are consistently ranking number 2, number 6 in the top 20 of the most dangerous intersections, with anything from 8 accidents a month to 15 accidents a month. That's every couple of days, every few days. On each of these intersections, you're having crashes. So that's my concern, are we adding to the safety issue of Bloomingdale Road? And there's some inconsistency. I mean, the applicant says Bloomingdale is level of service D, from 301 to Providence, but the county report said it's level of service F, all the way from Gornto to Kings. Are they correct in their notion that this smaller segment of it is a D?
Yeah, we believe that that is correct. And so the difference between those two figures is what the applicant provided was done with actual traffic counts. And the other level of service, the level of service report is a generalized level of service report. And what the applicant submitted was done with a bit more detail that resulted in the D.
Okay, and you're also now concurring that, because originally the report said this change the land use change may generate up to 1,262 additional daily trips. But, and that's in the Hillsborough County report. It's page number 33 or page 4 of 13 of the transportation stuff. Well, now it's page 35, I think. That said it would add 1,262, and it's still saying that the available capacity is minus 712. That, I'm looking at this. This is page 35 of the PDF. It's or page 3 of 13 and 4 of 13 of the transportation analysis.
Page, I'm sorry, 3 of 13?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think as I'm looking at that data, this traffic summary, existing conditions and max development potential, that count looks like it's based on the level of service report with that available, sorry.
Right. Yeah, the Hillsborough County 2014 level of service report.
Right, Matt Lewis with Strategic Infrastructure Planning. So that is based on the 2014 level of service report. The applicant has provided more recent counts, as Mr. Gormley has reinforced, that we agree with. Those are actual data on the ground versus the older data that we have here. And as to your first question about the trip generation, the development scenario that was analyzed, what we initially analyzed for this was 128 single-family units. Since then, the Planning Commission and the applicant have looked at it and seen what the actual development potential on the property is for SMU 6. And so that's why we're agreeing with the new assignment of trips based on
that this would actually reduce the trips to make this change.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
And Commissioners, I think just to help clarify, I think that report confirmed that was the prior report based on the old data that's there, and the supplemental report is further in the backup here.
Correct.
That reflects the more current data.
Yes.
Thank you.
Are you finished? Thank you. Commissioner Merman, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. I'm going to make this really quick. And I want to thank the residents for coming out. In fact, I see an old friend and didn't even know he lived in the area, so it was great to see him. This is, when we are doing these comp plans, we look at, the Planning Commission really scrutinizes these plan amendments pretty thoroughly. And when they bring them to here and the Planning Commission unanimously approves it, they've said it's consistent. Generally, I mean, we have, there isn't a legal reason why we shouldn't move it along. Is it perfect still right now? Probably not, but it definitely is worth moving it along. And by the time it gets, the rezoning comes back here, we can address some more of those transportation. But I think this is a perfect project that we all talk about that we want as far as infill. And, you know, it's going to have the transportation. Actually, it's really so close to, you know, getting on 301 to get on the crosstown. So, you know, your voices have been heard. They're not being, you know, squelched in any way, but I think that at this time, we need to move this along and approve it today. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just say I do have serious safety concerns. And I don't have the information here, and it was down in the other part of Bloomingdale Road, and I thought, even since I've been a commissioner, that there were a number of deaths on Bloomingdale Road in just the past couple of years. And so I was a little surprised, because I've always thought of Bloomingdale as being on the top Vision Zero places. And I have grave concerns about the condition of the road, about our, as a commission, as a county, our lack of investment and willingness to invest in our infrastructure and prioritizing that infrastructure accordingly. As well, there at this time, I appreciate I think I've expressed before what's been done with the development, what the developer has done. I know many of those in the audience said that, but and it's great that there's a bus stop there, but there won't be any kind of reasonable bus service. There won't, and first of all, I'm not even sure when or if we'll ever get the tax. There seems to be, in order to get really robust service there, I think you'd really have to have looking at a set-aside lane, honestly, in some way, a dedicated lane for decent bus service. It's very dangerous to have a bus stop on one side and not the other. I know that that's not your fault, but right now the bus service is at most. I didn't have the chance to look it up, but at most half hourly, which is just really once an hour. And I'll just say to the board, I have been trying to get an additional $2.3 million that I asked for in the past 2 years, and which were granted, but not now, in moving forward for additional operational services. And that was not supported. And Bloomingdale is one of the streets that I had targeted for more regular service. And so, I mean, we can, obviously it's going to get moved forward, but I really feel like it's, we have, again, people here crying out and talking about our lack of infrastructure, are not doing our job, I don't think, in terms of making sure that this lined up correctly. I can appreciate, yes, this is the place for infill, but I really feel like the commitment has still not been here for us to do the kind of infrastructure we should be doing before we throw down the development. So I'll just say that, and I don't know. It'll probably come back very quickly before we ever know what's going on with this. That's what usually happens. The transmittal is not up from years ago. It used to be something. It goes up to the state. They actually looked at it. I don't know that it's ever taken. It used to be a year sometimes before it came back. I think we always get it back super fast now. And there's, I don't know that I've ever heard of it being rejected in the 2.5 years I've been here, but probably not in the last decade or so, since DCA doesn't exist anymore. So this is totally on us to do something protective about this and to really be thinking about it. But with that being said, I don't see anybody else in the queue. We have a motion to support the transmittal by Commissioner Smith I'm sorry, excuse me, by Commissioner White, and we have a second by Commissioner Hagan. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
And we have to have a vote now on the transmittal vote. So we have a motion and a second by Commissioner Hagan, a second by Commissioner Merman. Seeing no further discussion, please record your vote.
Motion carried 6-0.
We are adjourned.